Hello, welcome to the special report, your news and views program about geek gaming culture on the internet. Come up in the show today, developer Qureate has said that they are indefinitely delaying their erotic rhythm game Massage Freaks for a few reasons, though some say it's to censor the game after some backlash about its content. Though there are some issues about the reporting about said backlash that might lead to suspicion about where the complaints outside the intellectual property are really coming from. Maybe a certain site called ResetEra that we should all know about by now. But we'll get into the details. I'm JD Shadow. This and the OC Remix track of the day is coming your way right now. As everyone knows by now, because of the apparent backlash of said game, the Nintendo Switch was set to receive the erotic rhythm game Massage Freaks. Now, I'm not sure how much of the game I can safely show here, but I will try my best because, as you may have guessed, this is not a game for kids. It is a not safe for work game. And it is a game that would have made 80s and early 90s Nintendo go into a frenzy if you remember how censor happy they were back in the day. The game was announced on July 14th, but according to TechRaptor, the developers have now delayed the game indefinitely. Now, while there is a legitimate issue to be had as to the reason, a problem where some of the character names were identical to a Japanese idol group, so some copyright issues might be in play here, the main issue seems to be the content itself and its extremely NSFW nature. Now, while the US eShop page for the game remains, which gives you a little hope that they may decide to release the game anyway, the EU and JP pages are now down and out, with no word of if or when the game is planned to make a return and get a new release date. It is important to note that the developer of the game, Qureate, had responded to supposed backlash of the game's content, as there were some reports that were willing to tone down the content of the game. Again, not sure what I can say about the game without making YouTube being YouTube, so I'll leave it with you having to Google the name of the game to find out as much as you want about it. I hate that we have to censor ourselves on this platform because certain people like to work against others on YouTube. Jim Sterling and the Young Turks, I'm looking at you. And not enough people will say up yours to the rules and break them to the point that YouTube can't get them all. So until that happens, we have to play by their rules. More people need to be like me on this one. But it has seemed now that some are accusing Qureate, and please forgive me, I'm pronouncing that name incorrectly, of bowing to the pressure of some of the people that wanted the game completely gone and heavily censored. And while I agree that they should not do so, I can see why they might if they are getting backlash from a few small groups. I had once worked to try to counter an American Family Association campaign called 1 Million Moms, you may have heard of this, who tried to get sponsors to pull advertising from shows they found unfit. But it was their standards, and if you knew anything about the AFA, you knew exactly what they found immoral. I bring this up because, like we see now, the way to counter being a small group is to be the louder group. If the target advertiser or target itself blocked their form email robot they had on their site, yes, they made it to where you could send a pre-made email to the target through their site with the only input needed from you is a signature and a press of a button. They would do phone calls and then snail mail. They would not stop, and they would be vicious and be demanding and harassing. It's the same thing with some of the pro clutchers we see right now who want things censored because they are too pornographic. They're like the Terminator, can't be bargained or reasoned with, and will not stop ever until they get what they want. And they will always find a way to get you to hear them over anyone else, regardless of who else is saying it. So I do sympathize, sort of, with some of these companies that feel that sort of pressure, which is why I say we don't need people like Jim Definitely Sterling making it tougher for the rest of us to be able to bring up these complex topics like this game by muddying the waters and trying to make the illusion that common ground cannot exist. If Jim really wanted to stop capitalism, then it would be things like the effort here to censor Massage Freaks that the individuals should be against. But look for Jim to instead say that it's too indecent for some reason, and that anyone countering that argument from the individual is a gamer TM or is right-wing somehow, as if common ground is too taboo for the individual. But let me also specify why I'm not for the censoring of games like this. We hear it all the time that games that are sexual in nature and have content like this can make someone misogynist or forceful on women, or something like that. A place that I'm sure you know I'll bring up here in a moment has tried to throw out any study about this not being the case as right-wing trash, and stopped any further talk about the discussion. Maybe they didn't have a counter for it. But here's the problem with that argument. The games make people violence in real life argument. Let me explain. Those very people who don't want games like Massage Freaks to exist because they believe it will make gamers hate women and want to force themselves on women will suddenly turn around and say that violent video games doesn't make anyone want to go shoot someone in real life. Reversely, someone who has said that erotic games should not be censored have then said that violent video games cause violence IRL. So which is it? If you're going to say it makes gamers X in one instance, you can't then go and say that they can make gamers Y in another and vice versa. If games don't make people violent, then they are not making them think that women are second-rate citizens either. And if you think they do make gamers hate women, then you open the door for someone to counter with a violent video game rhetoric. You see now where the problem lies? No, there's no proof whatsoever that violent video games causes violence in real life, as there is no evidence to suggest that erotic video games will cause a gamer to want to perform unwanted advances on women or be misogynistic. I might never play a game like Massage Freaks. Rhythm games are not my forte, but I would not deny anyone the opportunity should they desire to. And I don't think they are any less of a person for wanting to play it. And if they are worried about someone unsuspecting or younger players seeing a game like that next to a game that is more for a younger player, then there are better ways you can handle something like that than the call for its complete removal. There is a reason parental tools exist on these systems, especially on Nintendo's system. You can have it so a kid's account never sees a game like that on the storefront. You don't have to deny our enjoyment for fear that your little one might possibly see something that, as the late George Carlin once said, some might rather have a kid see than have them see someone killing another person. Just putting it out there. But you might be wondering why I said supposed backlash a few moments ago. This is because the original story of there being backlash came from a site called Automation Media. And unlike what I said about the game itself, this link I will put as a pinned comment down below. This is because there is something odd about this story. Claimed that there was backlash about the content of the game, but if you notice about the story itself, there isn't any sources for where the backlash was specifically coming from. Usually, if you see a story like this, you would see them list some tweets or some screenshots with redacted names, of course, of the complaints. Here, we get none of that, though we are led to believe that they exist somewhere. Of course, the developers of the game said that they felt enough to need to make changes. And remember about that idol group and the naming issue with that being a more understandable reason, as no game would be outside the realm of having an intellectual property lawsuit aimed at them, and Japan still doesn't have any fair use doctrine. At least the US has the illusion of one existing. So we have to suspect that they got these complaints from somewhere. So why would Automation Media not cite these complaints so we would know what was actually said? Why are we not allowed to counter their arguments? Well, that's why I'm very suspicious that these complaints are not coming from a legitimate source. What I mean by that is that there's a few people being able to be really loud and obnoxious, to the point that someone might feel that someone is breaking one of their legs, so they have no choice but to bend that knee. You can't use your backbone if it's broken because someone took a sledgehammer to it while someone was in your face distracting you. There's something weird going on here, which is why I'm making this. I have some possibilities of what might be going on here. One is that these are, again, a group of, let's say, 10 people that the site and others like it decided to amplify to make it seem larger than what it is. After all, if you didn't hear about this game existing from places like Clownfish TV prior to all of this happening, or from a few sites that chose to say it was there, you probably would have not realized that it existed prior to this backlash. So this big of a backlash might not be able to exist if the game wasn't that well known to be out there. It would be a long shot of a reason. Not as much of a long shot, the developers using an excuse to get out of what they see might be a hairy situation, or that it could be coming from within. Their own developers crying foul. Could be, which is why I'm covering that base just for completion's sake, but I doubt that's the reason. But the media might itself be what could be the bigger possibility of where they're coming from. I mentioned before about Jim Sterling, and that individual has been known to have some pull, as much as Jim shouldn't have it anymore given the individual's affiliation with certain others, and how that could influence what the individual says. Jim has been part of the machine that Jim has tried to say the individual is fighting against, but they're just oiling a different cog of that machine. And what about the rest of the mainstream establishment media? As I said, automation media never cited the source of the complaints. What if they are the source of complaints? Maybe Qureate believed that they were legitimate complaints they were getting when they really were just coming from the media themselves. We've seen the media do this before. Places like Polygon, Kotaku, Rock Paper Shotgun, and people like Nathan Grayson decide that they are above all of us and try to be the ones making complaints that we never asked them to do for us because we never had any of those kinds of complaints about anything. They go into business for themselves with the illusion that they are echoing our sentiments when we said nothing like what they're saying. There are people on Twitter who are saying not to censor this game, and TechRaptor linked to one of the tweets, but none about where the initial complaints came from, a sign that they could be the ones that are doing the complaining while thinking we're stupid at the same time. There's one more possibility though. Remember what I said, that there was a study about games and if they made someone hate women and that someone shut down the conversation at that site of the account of it being right-wing propaganda? Well, someone in Gematsu's reporting of the announcement of the game had this to say, quote, "ResetEra in shambles." Remember what I brought up some time ago? That it seems like some sites will not actually cite ResetEra as the source for complaints like this if it is the source of complaints like this. We all know ResetEra by now, a gaming site that is so fringe on the left as the AFA was on the right wing, that they have seemingly purged any and all users that dare to dissent even the slightest bit with their worldview. This is a site where some developers, especially indie devs, go and chat up with what they believe are fellow gamers, but have no idea of how little you have to dissent on that site to be called right-wing and be outright banned with some rule they made up on the spot, sometimes a permanent ban. The people they ban would otherwise be considered progressive and left-wing, but is never enough for ResetEra. And if they don't like you, like one person who posted Japanese game sale numbers found out, they will target you and bait you into getting banned, and will actively work behind the scenes to get you for something out of spite. How can you expect to have sincere, worthwhile discussion about gaming if all they care about is their version of decency and their worldview of what it means to be progressive and what being left-wing is? And they will ban you if they feel like they are losing an argument they are willing to take any means necessary to win, especially if the argument is about schematics of something that both sides would otherwise agree with, or how something should be done. And yes, ResetEra has been rather successful in getting things in the game changed. Just see what happened with Game & Watch in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, or about a few developers that were doxxed by them just because one letter of their belief didn't match their own. I could go on, but I think I made my point here that the discussions there always lead down a toxic path and doesn't lend themselves to any healthy discussions of any topic. And you always need to walk on eggshells when you are there to make sure you don't get on the wrong side of someone who has a bone to pick with you on that day. They have become a stain on the gaming industry for this and other reasons. While I didn't see any on-site indication that ResetEra had mentioned this game in the searches I've done so far, this doesn't necessarily mean the game hasn't ever been brought up on the site. The site moves rather quickly, and it's hard to determine if there was some heat about the game there, as things can move within the span of a second. Furthermore, there could have been talk in their sometimes mentioned Discord server, even the one where it was revealed that they don't believe even a fourth of what they say on the mothership site. And that effort to get the Japanese sales figure guys banned, that was planned out via their, I guess, other Discord server? It's highly possible it was orchestrated there, or someone when Qureate went on the site, found the Discord, and might be like red meat in front of a pack of lions which chewed them up and tossed the bloody carcass into the pool of great whites that were in the cage with them. And if you think I'm exaggerating, check out the ResetEra Takes 2.0 Twitter account for the sequence of events about that person who posted those sales figures. It led to a few mods resigning, one of them blaming the users for what happened, while all the while ResetEra men somehow finding the words to make it so they were absolved of any fault whatsoever. Oh, and those moderators, they showed absolutely no remorse for their actions whatsoever. So would it be outside the realm of possibility that ResetEra could have made sure that, again, they weren't ever involved in something that would be seen as so negative to the rest of the gaming community that no one could have possibly backed up their position? I have said it before and I will again. Gaming sites worth their salt and are not worried about taking out the establishment gaming elites in the media must say that it's ResetEra that could be driving a lot of these campaigns. And more gaming companies need to start calling them out by name so people know not to trust them and not to listen to them when they make complaints like this. David Jaffe can do it, so can you. Trust me, there are more people than you might think that are listening to them. And if they are able to pull stuff like what all they have done before, remember that only a few who know anything about the few frames of animation, the GNW and SSB know that ResetEra had anything to do with that. What makes you think they can't be in the driver's seat here? More people have to start actively calling them out. Now, keep in mind this is all speculation. I'm not saying that it is certain that any of these are true, though my money is on that like they have before. ResetEra had something to do with it, given their history and how this story is being reported without any source of where these complaints are coming from whatsoever. But Qureate bowing to pressure isn't the way to go, especially if they are coming from a place like ResetEra or something like Jim Sterling's audience. Those places are not representative of the gaming community as a whole, and we are able to play games like this and still be respectful of others, especially women, IRL. Just as we are able to play a game like GTA and not want to go shoot up an elementary school or a theater. Yes, we smack talk, and sometimes we can say things during that smack talk that might make an unsuspecting person cringe. But we understand that we have a higher tolerance from certain things from gaming friends when they say certain things to us than we would if a stranger would say that very same thing to us. I don't think I have to explain why that is. And if a game like that doesn't interest us for whatever reason, we are able to just choose to not buy it without denying someone else that opportunity. And we can use the tools given to us to make sure no children have access to adult-oriented games. Gamers need to be given a bit more faith than that. Yes, it is true that some people don't know how to behave, but that's true of every single group in the world. And the rest of us do call out when someone gets very disrespectful, while at the same time be able to defend someone's right to be allowed to show that they are deserving of more faith than places like ResetEra and people like Jim Sterling give them. There's no TM that you can append to the end of gamers in this regard. And we are able to be respectful of all races, genders, creeds, orientations, religions, etc., while still call out when corporations try to monetize diversity for little more than profit when there was no record of them ever giving a damn about it outside of 1 month out of a year, and the only thing that they changed for that month was their logo going Technicolor to the point it needs an epilepsy warning. Instead of doing things that would actually progress minority status in these companies, like treat women and minorities with respect, talking to you Activision Blizzard, or to hire more qualified people to positions regardless of their identity and giving them equal pay and opportunities to show what they can really do. And it would have been helpful for those reporting this story to give us more information on who is leveling these complaints. I don't know if Automation Media has any particular history to show if their reporting on stories are to be trusted, but they should know that we need to be able to be shown that they can be trusted to tell us the truth because we were burned before. To do that, they should give all the information, not just some of it. Give us the sources. And if it was ResetEra Jim's audience, it's not going to hurt you just say that. It would help us to counter the arguments as we should be allowed to do. And it would also help us to try to dispute how much influence those places or people are allowed to have. Jim should not have that much pull to have something like that be done. And ResetEra surely shouldn't have that much power to do even half the things that they have already done. And if you are a developer or are going to that site and are believing what they are telling you about how gamers are and how they are a direct representation of what gamers everywhere actually want you to do, then you are being propagandized in the worst possible way. I'll keep you informed if there's any update to this situation. That will do it for this Shadow Report. Thanks as always for watching. If you like what you saw, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more Geek Gaming Culture. And please ring the bell so you get notified about new videos and content. Well, videos are the content. Before I go, I want to give you the OC Remix track of the day as always, because honoring the legacy of Total Biscuit, John Bain, somebody who would not let something like this just go. I don't think he would let anything like this go. I don't think he would. Let's pick a new one from Neon X. From a game everybody knows about, Chrono Trigger. I really like this one. The title of this is Neons in Time. It is a remix of the Quarter of Time track that plays when you go into Zeal. And I really like the electronic EDM remix of this. I think is really well done, so please give it a listen. And please go support ocremix.org and let them know that I sent you. Till next time, my name is JD Shadow, and that just happened.